Welcome, everyone. Good evening. My name is Alan Swain, and I'm actually running for Congress for Congressional District 2 here in Wake County. We're privileged to have with us three special panelists with regard to learning a little bit more about what happens in the district court system here in the state of North Carolina. We have three panelists. First of all, we have Beth Tanner. Beth is a wife, mother, attorney, public servant, and candidate for district court judge here in Wake County. For over a decade, she has represented clients, providing them the advice and representation they need to navigate difficult circumstances. Currently, Beth is a public servant and works as the Associate Director for the North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission, a state agency charged with investigating claims of innocence after conviction. Every day, Beth's job is to ensure justice has been delivered fairly, and she seeks to continue that work as a district court judge for us here in Wake. Our second panelist is Mr. Dan Nagle. Dan is a resident of Wake County since 1967. He's married to his wife, Val, for 33 years. He's the father of Caroline Nagle, graduate of UNC undergrad, and her master's in public health leadership at UNC. Dan earned his associate degree in criminal justice at Wake Technical Community College and his bachelor's degree in justice studies at North Carolina Wesleyan College while working with the sheriff's office, and earned his Juris Doctorate degree at North Carolina Central University after retiring. Dan has served 28 years as a law enforcement officer, where he rose through the ranks and retired as a major, having served 3 different sheriffs. Dan served as an assistant district attorney under Colin Willoughby until his election as district court judge in November of 2012, where he has been primarily assigned to the criminal and child support rotation. He enjoys spending time at the coast, where he and Val enjoy fishing and kayaking. Our third panelist comes to us with a different bent. He is a lifelong resident of Wake County. His name is Steve Hale. Steve attended all Wake County public schools, including Wake Tech and NC State. He is a U.S. Army veteran, worked in the counterintelligence field in Europe during the Cold War. He is a member of Wake County Sheriff Office for 26 years, where he retired as a detective lieutenant of the homicide unit. He is the North Carolina licensed private investigator. He has been appointed to over 200 murder defense cases by the North Carolina Indigent Defense Services. And we're fortunate to have Steve here with his law enforcement background, and he is a candidate on the Republican ticket for Wake County Commissioner. So we're fortunate to have all 3 of these. So without further ado, I want to hand off to Beth so she can introduce all of us to her a little more and get to know her, and we'll ask her some questions along with the other panelists when they're done. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. I am Beth Tanner. Also appearing this evening is my campaign manager and my cat, Valentine. I apologize. She literally finds me in any room of the house on Zoom. But I'm a mother. I have 2 beautiful girls. They're 14 and 10. We are, with many of you right now, struggling very much to figure out what is the best opportunities for them. And in fact, my 10-year-old is one of the reasons I'm running for district court judge. My little one has autism. I am a mom of special needs, and that's a tough road sometimes. It's a rewarding road, but it's definitely tough. When I was an attorney and I practiced in district court, I represented quite a few clients who had children that also had special needs. And I believe strongly that it's important for us to have folks, especially on the district court bench, that understand really what that looks like. Families. District court is where we do families. It's where we do juveniles, and basically is the workhorse of the justice system. So that is one of the reasons I'm running. Right now, I practice as an attorney for the state of North Carolina. I'm the associate director for the North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission. That is a state agency. It was actually the brainchild of former Chief Justice I. Beverly Lake. And it was created to make sure that innocence claims, we see it on TV all the time, that they had a place to go and be investigated. And I do that every day. I investigate claims myself. I also manage a state agency, but pre-COVID, I was out knocking on doors like some of these former law enforcement folks right here, except they didn't give me a gun or a badge. But I go out and knock on doors. I find people, and The question I'm always looking for is the truth. Lawyers are advocates. In the role that I'm in right now, I'm not slated as an advocate. I'm slated to just find out what is the truth. Is this person innocent or not? We come from a neutral place, and that's what we look for. So I do it every day. That sounds a whole lot like what judges do. So I have been working from that. One of the important things about my race that I like to tell folks is in Wake County, there are local judges, superior court judges, and district court judges. As it turns out, the race that I am running in is the only race that will be contested in November. So judges like Judge Nagle here, they've done a great job and they were unopposed, and that's fantastic. We also had some other seats that were battled out in the primaries in March. So they're already decided. So going into November, if you find local judicial politics important, and I would say that you should, I would really appreciate your support. I'm working really hard. I'm out meeting voters every day, doing what I can do to win. So I'm excited to answer questions tonight and for you guys to learn a little bit more about me and my judicial philosophy.
Thank you, Beth. Dan?
Well, good evening. Alan, thank you for inviting me to the forum, and I'm happy to be here with Steve and Beth and yourself. I am running for re-election. I do not have an opponent, but I still would like for you to drop a vote as you go by my name on the ballot. But as I said, I don't have an opponent, so I'm lucky in that I get to continue to focus on what I do every day. I love my job. I try to make a difference. The thing about this job and being as prosecutor, and even prior to that as law enforcement officer, every night when I go home and I sit in that chair and I sit back and I think about my day, I think to myself, well, you know what? I made a small difference in this community today. I made a difference with at least one person today. And when you can go home and you have that sort of job satisfaction about what you do, it doesn't get any better than that. And so I truly appreciate the opportunity to continue to make a difference. And I will continue to do that. I will follow the law and treat people with dignity and respect. And I appreciate all the votes and the work that has gotten me where I am today. And I plan to do one more term, and I'm looking for your vote again. And looking forward to seeing Ms. Tanner as a member of our bench here in Wake County.
Super, thanks, Dan. Steve?
Thank you, Colonel. Again, Steve, my name is Steve Hale. I'm happy to be here with Beth and Judge Nagle. Judge Nagle and I started our careers off together. We were detention officers, or back then they called them jailers. We were actually jailers while we were waiting to attend the academy. So we've been doing this for longer than I'm going to say. But the work I'm doing now is a criminal defense investigator. I'm licensed by the Department of Justice as a private investigator, but my work is solely in criminal defense, funded by the IDS, Indigent Defense Services. And North Carolina is a leader in providing legal representation for indigents. Other states have looked to our model for providing legal services to indigents. If you are charged with a crime in North Carolina that could result in a prison sentence, you have the right to have a court-appointed attorney. If you have a right, or in a case where you are going to have a court-appointed attorney, that attorney can have experts appointed to assist him, and that's my role. I go out and re-interview the witnesses that the police have interviewed. What Beth does is a lot like what I do now. I'm not an advocate for either side, although I'm motivated by the potential innocence of people that are charged with crimes. But you could say I reinvestigate the police investigation. I look at the evidence as it was collected by the police, where it was collected, how it was handled, where it was processed. I tracked that from the crime scene to the lab and back to the evidence room. I re-interview witnesses. And if the defendant has an alibi, of course, that goes to the top of the list. If he says, I wasn't there and I didn't do it, we have to investigate that. And it's more about assuring a defendant's civil rights are protected, that he's got adequate representation. And interestingly enough, one of the recent cases that Beth worked on last summer, James Blackman, once her office determined that there was evidence of innocence, it went to a panel of attorneys with the Prisoners of Legal Services, and they had me appointed. And that case was in the 1990s, the late 1997 and 8. So Beth and I were investigating and trying to locate witnesses that have moved on from 30 years ago. It's fascinating to interview the police officers that were involved in that case. It was very helpful to have Beth's work. I used her work as a roadmap. And ultimately, James Blackman was found innocent by a panel of 3 Superior Court judges after he sat in prison for 37 years. So Beth and I both are very proud of the work that we do. I get a lot of job satisfaction to see a result as we did in James Blackman. And I'm happy to be running for county commissioner to continue to serve Wake County. Wake County's paid for all the training and experience I have, and continue to serve in any way that I can find that's beneficial. So I'm happy to be here and happy to be with this panel. Thank you, Colonel.
Thanks, Steve. I'm going to direct this one to you first, Dan, and then Beth and Steve can chime in. But since you're an incumbent, what do the district courts do exactly, and why is a district court important to voters?
Well, district court is where the average person, if they ever have to go to court, is probably going to be going to court. District court handles criminal cases, the misdemeanor crimes, driving while impaired, traffic citations, and those kind of crimes. We handle the probation violations. We take the pleas in lower level felony cases. Then you have the family court, where you have divorce, equitable distribution, child support, child custody, child visitation. All of those issues are handled in the district court. And then we have the civil cases where the smaller civil cases below, I can't remember the cutoff right now because I'm not in that rotation, but the less than 15,000 or perhaps 10,000, those are handled in district court, and the higher amounts are handled in superior court. So it's pretty much the people's court. The things that happen, and especially the things that I dealt with when I was with the sheriff's office, those are the same things that I'm dealing with here in district court. And so it's very important, and it's important to know that you have a judge that you know will follow the law, will be fair and to both sides, to both the state and to the defendant, and will render justice in a compassionate way. So we handle quite a bit and quite a number of cases, but up until the COVID virus came into play, we were actually disposing of more cases than were filed in the district courts. That has changed a little bit, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But so sort of that's the package. That's what the district court do for our legal system here in North Carolina. It's an awesome responsibility.
Thank you. Beth, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I will add, as an attorney, what he says is right. I think, one of the important judicial philosophies that I have is I do think judges should follow the law. You know, I tell people judges are elected every 4 years, on district court level every 8 years. And, you know, your General Assembly members are elected every 2 years. So what I say about that is it's kind of a silly thing, but basically, you know, that's like the gestation of an elephant. If you don't like what your General Assembly members do, and you get 2 years and you can vote them out, judges are with you longer. And our job is to follow the law. As an attorney that's represented clients, I can tell you when you're sitting down with a client and you're saying, hey, this is what the law says, say about alimony, you know, what you might owe your spouse in alimony. If you had a judge that didn't bother to follow the law, that would be a really hard day for you and your client in court. That's an extreme example, but it is a good example. Now, district court judges do have some discretion in some things, but it is important to look to judges who are interested in following the law, and that is the law given by the General Assembly and also by precedent from higher courts. I think that's just really important. And that really is the basis of what a district court judge should be doing, and it's important to people in their lives. So that's what I would add to that for sure.
Super. Steve, did you need to add anything to that?
Yes, sir. So district court is where police officers spend at least 1 day a month. Every police officer is assigned a court day when he's on day shift. That's when his misdemeanor cases are called. We don't have probable cause hearings in this district like they do some others. Those go to the grand jury. But every police officer has an assigned court day once a month, and that usually takes all day long. And again, that's the misdemeanor charges and the traffic charges and the charges as Judge Nagle described. And so police officers spend a great deal of time in district court. Our cases get continued. Sometimes the attorneys find that aren't prepared, and even though we have to be there on our court day, and the cases are continued, and you have to maintain your file, and you have to maintain familiarity with the case, so that if you do come to court on your court day and one of those cases is called for trial, you've got to be ready. We all in law enforcement spend a great deal of time in district court, and it can either be a very rewarding and enjoyable experience, or it can be very frustrating when you're subpoenaed on your day off, or you're subpoenaed on night shift because your case wasn't called on your court day. But we all spend a great deal of time in district court, and we appreciate having quality judges like Judge Nagle and hopefully Beth Tanner to make that process go smoother, and to hold lawyers' feet to the fire and prepare their cases and get them moving through the courts in a timely manner. Thanks.
Great. It's good to get your perspective as a police officer, and I guess Dan got to do that when he was in uniform before he jumped to the other side to be behind the bench. So that's interesting. We'll start this one off with Beth. Why are you running for district court judge? You kind of alluded to it a little in your opening, but if you want to embellish a little more, that'd be great.
Sure. So I'm sorry, as you can see, Valentine's joined me, but so when I was a family law practitioner, and I was kind of new to my journey as a mom of a child with special needs, it was really important to me to explain to judges who were hearing cases, and I was practicing in family law, why it was important, for example, that both parents go to speech, but I get it, that may not be dad's day, but he's still going to want to go to the speech therapist, or explaining why it was such a big deal where the child went to school. And it started there, as I just was looking around and I was like, I'm living this every day. Like there is experience that you get from living something that can be important, that you bring. Everybody brings their own experiences. Just like having a background in law enforcement is experience, it's important to the bench. And so you create a group of colleagues, right, that maybe have all these experiences. And I thought that was important. And I think it is important to bring to the Wake County District Court bench. So that's really where it started. Where it kind of finished, and I said, I'm going to go run for this position, is in the job I'm in now. I loved trying cases. I tried cases in district court. I tried cases in superior court in multiple counties. And I tried cases in federal court. I represented law enforcement. I represented state employees I represented the Department of Public Safety and their employees for some time as an assistant attorney general. But when I came to the commission and I started doing the work of that, and looking at cases backwards, and what we're looking at the commission is felonies, and those are in, Superior Court. So I tell people this all the time. There's not a commission when your district court case goes badly. Nobody is gonna, look at that sort of the way we look at it at the commission. You have appeals and that kind of thing, but there's not a commission, for district court cases. But in looking at it backwards, you really do learn a lot. You see where things maybe didn't go right, or where things could have been done differently. And I do tell people all the time, I don't ever ascribe any particular bad behavior. Of course, that happens and we hear about that, but usually it really is just a series of things that could have been done better. And in watching that, and in standing and watching men like Mr. Blackman, who I had looked at their case, and hearing a judge say, "We have found you innocent," there really is nothing like that. To know that we got it wrong. There's no other way to describe that. We got it wrong. And I investigate a lot of cases that don't become public record where I know we got it right. And those are also really good days at work for me. But having that experience just really called me to being the judge on the bench. District court judges are fact finders, so that is part of the role. But judges also are part of controlling, the courtroom. And every piece of that matters. When you're a lawyer and you're up there fighting for your client, it matters what the judge says about how you can have evidence come in. And so when you kind of see that as a whole, and when I saw that as a whole come together in these cases where we had exonerations, I was like, hey, I really want to be a part of that on the front end. It's great that we fix it on the back end, but I want to be part of that on the front end. So those two things came together and they fit best in district court. That was kind of where I felt like those skills fit the best. And so I decided to run. This also was an open seat. So I know one of the things we'll probably talk about tonight is how busy district court is and how COVID has impacted that. The good news is the General Assembly added some judges, and out here where I'm running is 2 new judges. So, these are not incumbent seats. So that'll be adding people to the bench to kind of help work through those cases, hopefully. So it just kind of all came together, and that's why I'm running.
Great. So Dan, why are you running for re-election after your first term?
Well, I'm running for re-election because I love what I do, and surely I get a lot of satisfaction about being able to make a difference, which is what we do. Originally, probably back in 1985, while I was maybe halfway through my career with the sheriff's office, I started to think I can do more. And so then decided, well, I think I want to go to law school and be a lawyer. But I didn't have my undergrad degree, so I thought, well, if I'm going to go to law school, they probably want me to have an undergrad degree. So I got my undergrad degree. And then as I was going through that process and thinking about how I would do law school, we had a fantastic set of district court judges, and I respected all the judges that we had, and I thought a lot of them. And I started thinking, you know what, I want to be a lawyer, and eventually I want to run for district court judge. And so I mapped out a plan. My plan was to finish my undergrad, go to law school, retire from the sheriff's office, go with the district attorney's office and work with them for a while, and then run for district court judge. So that's been my plan since 1985 or somewhere around there. And so, you create your target, you develop a plan, and then you execute that plan, and that's pretty much where I've been. But the thing that I love about this job is it's another way to make a difference. And one of the things that Beth talked about, the importance of judges following the law. It's important not just for the lawyers, But it is important for the lawyers because when they're talking to their client, they want to be able to give you can't promise anything, but you can forecast, well, maybe this, maybe not this. But it's important that the law be predictable. That's important for business people. When you're entering into contracts, it's important that you know that the contract will be enforced. It's important that, if the law has been this, that it will continue to be this, and it won't be subject to change depending on who the judge is that you have. And so predictability in the law is one of the strongest reasons that we have for follow the law. When I was first elected, Craig Kroom, who worked with me and Steve at the sheriff's office, he was at that time a Superior Court judge. He had been my district court judge in juvenile. But when I was elected, he said, the one piece of advice that I'll give to you is follow the law. And if anybody says, well, why did you do that? Then you just tell them, well, I was following the law. And so I love my job, and that's why I want to keep doing it.
That's great. That's great. It's interesting, you had this roadmap and you followed it, sounds like to the T. You knew where your end state was. In the military, we call that, you had a strategic plan. You came up with an operational plan to get there, and you handle each bite and a tactical plan to get through each step, whether it's getting a college degree, law school, working in DA's office, and then ultimately getting to your goal of being a district judge. That's a very disciplined roadmap, and I applaud you for that, because there's a lot of people that have sidebars and detours, and it sounds like you stayed right on path.
Well, I spend a lot of time with younger people that are in district court. We don't get a whole lot of time in district court, but when I have a young person, I spend a lot of time trying to make a difference with that person. And one of the common themes of what we talk about is if you don't know where you're going, you will never get there. So you have to figure out what it is that you want to do with your life. You want to, every day you are writing that life story one day at a time with every decision that you make. And so when you came and you did this, and now you're going through this diversion program, so you get to tear that chapter out of the book and rewrite it and get back to that original plot line that you have that will take you to the end that says, and he lived happily ever after. I'm a great example for myself to use about, you got to know where you're going. Once you get to where you're going, that's not the end of it. You'll discover that, you know what, I can do more, and you'll see another goal that you want to accomplish. And it's never too late. I was 48 when I started law school, actually 49 when I started law school. And not very many people wait that long, but it's because I had achieved the goal that I always wanted to be in law enforcement. And then when I got there and I was about halfway through, I thought I can do more. So I developed some more goals, and I use that experience to talk with young people and to hopefully make a difference and motivate them. So.
That's great. That's great. Beth, it looked like you're reaching up to say something. I'm not sure if you were. No. Okay. Next question. What experience do each of you bring to the district court bench? I'm going to start with Beth again this time.
Sure. So one of the things that, a lot of people talk to lawyers about is being in district court. And I've been in district court. I've tried cases there, and that's really important. But I've also done a little bit more. At the commission, I'm the associate director. So myself and the executive director, our job is to manage the entire agency. So I don't just go to work and handle my cases. I go to work and make sure everybody's cases that are in my agency are moving on the track that they're supposed to be moving on. So I've talked a little bit about my personal experience. I've talked a little bit about my work experience, but I do want to talk about this. When I started at the commission, the executive director at the time had only been there a few years, and she had made it her mission to increase efficiency. And we review cases in stages. We have like an initial review, your first look at a case. Is this a case that we can take up and investigate? We have statutory guidelines that follow the law that guide us as to whether we can take up a case. And she had looked at those, and sometimes initial reviews in the past have been taking like a year. So like somebody would send us a letter and we wouldn't respond for a long time. But the executive director had really worked hard, and she had gotten that under control. And we do that now in 18 to 20 days. You hear back from us, yes, we're going to pick up your case, let's move it to the next stage, or no, this doesn't fit the statute, we can't look at your case. Then the next piece of that, and this happened when I started, was the big investigative cases. The reality was we were a state agency. As I'm sure everybody here knows, state government always needs more funding. This is how state government works. You could always use a little more funding. We do a lot with a very small budget. I think the commission might be one of the smallest budgets in the state. We have a very small budget, but we had a bunch of old cases, some that had been with us. Mr. Blackman's was an example, for 8 years, 9 years. 5+ years was kind of our benchmark. And so I was told, and I did, it was my job, and I worked on it to clean out the backlog. And I've done that. And that's important, because that's more than just going to district court and trying a case. That's understanding how to manage what you're in charge of to keep things moving. And I say this all the time, justice delayed is justice denied. Sometimes you can't help that. Sometimes you are doing the best you can do, but you should get up every day, especially when you work for the people, for the taxpayers, and do the best you can do. That is your job. That's my job at the commission. If someone has applied to us and says, hey, I'm innocent, even if it turns out there's not innocent, they're entitled to an answer. That's kind of how it works. If we've notified a victim, say we have requirements to notify a victim that, hey, we've picked up to look at this case, they shouldn't wait years to hear from us what the resolution of that case is. The same thing happens in a courtroom. It's just happening on the front end. So I think that experience of really leading an agency, because it's not just about me going to work and working hard, right? I had to encourage my staff to also want to come to work and work hard. You know what I mean? I had to get them in as part of our team to make that work happen. I had to build them as investigators. I had to find where they needed, support and how to support them, while still allowing them to be parents and husbands and wives. And we did that. And what I learned from that is really something that I believe will help me and will carry over, because the pressure of understanding what it means every time you have to continue a case is something I've experienced. Every time you don't quite get to that is something I've experienced, not just as an attorney, but as an actual manager over a caseload that I'm expected to, to move forward. So I think that experience in particular has prepared me for district court.
That's great. Dan, what experience would you say has been the biggest thing to help you as a district court judge?
Well, having the 28 years of experience in law enforcement, that means as a patrol officer, as a detective, investigator, and then on is supervising different units. I interviewed a lot of people, both victims and defendants and witnesses. And Steve will tell you that you interview a lot of people, and then when you do, you get the experience of understanding and recognizing when you're not hearing the truth, when you are hearing the truth, verbal cues that you pick up from people, all of those skills transferred to help me as a prosecutor, and then to help me as a district court judge. I also know the impact that crime has on the community and the impact that it has on the individual victim. And I know that a person who is charged with a crime, I know it's important to understand what the facts are in the case. And so that's what I've been doing my whole adult life, is looking at situations and analyzing, what can be done here to improve this situation. How does the law fit in? How can the law be used as a tool to improve the community and this person's life and those kind of things, but also understanding the law is a very powerful thing and can have a tremendous impact on people's lives. And so you have to be very careful with how you use the law to achieve goals. And so all of those things have kind of created the skill set that I have that I believe truly makes me a good district court judge, and will continue for at least the next term.
That's great. That's great. Before I get into the next question, this is more of a comment, and this comes from James Z. I'm going to just go to Dan first. I'm going to go to Beth. He asked, for the GOP judicial candidates, is there an easy way to find the donation links for each? So if you want to give right now, Dan, your link in case someone wants to donate to your campaign, and then I'll switch over to Beth real quick.
I truly appreciate the offer. However, there are two other people on the screen who need your campaign contributions. I don't. All I have to do, I'm sorry, three. I don't, because all I have to do is go down and vote and get enough people to cast more votes than are cast for Mickey Mouse or somebody like that. So I don't need campaign contributions, and I appreciate it, but please direct those to the other three candidates that you see on the screen here.
Beth, if you could let them know how they can contribute to your campaign.
Yes. So BethTannerForJudge.com. I like to keep it simple. As you can see, I have pets and kids, so we like to keep it simple at the Tanner house, but it's BethTannerForJudge.com. There's a donation link there. It allows you to put that in. So I would really appreciate your donations. Like I said, this is a good campaign to give to, because it is the one in Wake County, and it's an opportunity to elect a new judge. One of the other things I'd like to say is, and this is great, when judges do a good job, and I fully want to do a good job, a lot of times they do get to run unopposed. So I think that is important to see this new seat as an opportunity to really put a good judge into there. So BethTannerForJudge.com. Thank you for asking.
Super. Steve, we're going to let you jump in as a former Leo.
So sure, my campaign website is Steve Hale for Wake, and there's a button at the top that's support campaigns. To support the campaign, we're all trying to buy yard signs and prepare for the fall. It's very expensive. This is a lot of work, but not only is this a lot of hard work, it's also very expensive. I'm surprised by all of that, how hard it is, how long it is, and then how much money it costs. So yes, any donations are appreciated, and are will be well spent, will not be wasted.
Okay, thank you. Dan, this goes to you, Judge Nagle. Are there areas where district court judges are asked to use discretion? And if so, what areas or cases does that kind of happen in, or does it happen?
Well, most of our discretion, I would say, is probably in sentencing. And I have a philosophy that I use 3 filters to look at on coming to what would be the proper sentence in this case. The first one is, what's in the best interest of the community? And then the next filter is what's in the best interest of the victim. And just as importantly, the third filter is what's in the best interest of the defendant. And that's a very important filter because I have, I can reject the district attorney and a defendant can agree on a plea arrangement for a specific sentence, and I can either accept that plea or I can reject it. And generally when I reject it, it's because this is not in the best interest of the defendant. If this is a sexual battery case and there's no treatment, no mental health treatment, no sex offender specific evaluation, then, if I put him in jail for 60 days, we really haven't accomplished anything because that behavior is going to repeat itself unless this person has received the treatment and understands, what his triggers are and what he can do when he has those kind of urges or whatever. So there's a lot of discretion in sentencing, even though there are specific guidelines for specific types of crimes, but there's still a lot of discretion within that. And then of course there's discretion for the judges that they have to exercise when hearing objections on the introduction of evidence, and the biggest job of the judge there is to follow the rules of evidence, and those are designed to ensure that the evidence that comes in at a trial is reliable, that it is what it purports to be, and that it's reliable. It's not third-hand information and that sort of thing. So there's quite a bit of discretion, and it's an awesome responsibility to exercise that discretion, especially at sentencing, because there's a purpose for that sentencing.
Okay. Beth, did you want to add anything to that?
I would definitely add there too that this is like a civil example, but I talked about how the judge is sometimes the fact finder in district court. As a family law practitioner, judges are deciding all the time what's in the best interest of the minor child. And that isn't like a standard. It's a lot like what he's talking about with sentencing. It's not like, there's case law that guides that, there's things that guides that, but that is ultimately something that the judge is looking at. And that encompasses really in a divorce, in a custody case, how is that child going to live moving forward? Nobody likes to see themselves in a divorce or a custody case, but that's just real life. It happens. And so I think those are times when, at least in district court, in my experience, where they were using quite a bit of that. And I will add, I really appreciate Judge Nagle's answer about that, because at the commission, we look at cases where people have pled guilty, and pleas happen for all kinds of reasons. And it is important that the judges looking at those and improving those are really asking the right questions to themselves when they're going to approve the plea. So I really do appreciate that answer. It is something, the goal of any plea in cases, or of any, punishment when someone has been convicted, right, is rehabilitation. You want them to come back into society successfully, particularly in district court. That is really important, because those are the kinds of crimes. So that's a super important point to make as regards to pleas in district court. But I would add that. That's just another example, is that best interest of the minor child on the civil side in family law cases.
Okay. Steve, did you have anything to add from your times being there in front of the district judge in uniform?
Oh, absolutely. You can get all the training, theoretical training in the academy on how to prepare a case for trial, how to testify, how to dress, how to hold yourself, because the judge is watching you. You're testifying all the time, whether you're speaking or not, because they're assessing you for credibility, they're assessing you for thoroughness. And when you get on that witness stand, they're assessing you for the accuracy of what you're testifying to. I've seen officers get their cases confused. I've seen officers take the stand and start testifying about a case that's not before the judge. I mean, they just, for whatever reason, aren't prepared. But that's where you learn how to prepare a case. It's where you learn how to collect evidence. When you're sitting in that witness chair and the district attorney is cross-examining you, and the judge may ask you questions as well. And if you are not prepared, that judge may discount your testimony, and you may lose that conviction. And for young officers, that's devastating. You put a lot of work. You go to a call in the middle of the night, you make an arrest, and you prepare it for court, and you lose it because you lose the case, or the judge finds the defendant not guilty because you were unprepared. And so once you're out in the field and you've had that experience, you know to ask more questions. You know to get clarifying questions. You know to get corroborating statements and not just take the statement of the first person that you speak to. Because when you get to trial, if you've not thoroughly investigated that case, the defense lawyer is going to hire somebody like me to go out there and interview the witnesses that you did not interview. And you are going to look, you are going to be embarrassed. And it doesn't have to happen to you, but when you see it happen to others, or you hear the stories back at the station of after court where somebody's totally blown it, it's a hard lesson to learn, but that's where you learn. And they can talk about it in the academy, but until you get in that courtroom, you're on your own. Your instructors aren't there with you. Your sergeant's not there with you. Your lieutenant's not there with you. And the district attorney probably doesn't have the time to prepare you to testify. You have to do all that on your own, and you learn it on your own. And it's a hard path for some. So people like Judge Nagle, I'm sure counsel's officers that get up there and aren't prepared. I know George Green, when I was a young officer, he would give me notes. Notes, that he would hand me as I was stepping down from the witness stand. I'm not going to say what they were, but I learned and I improved and I got better.
Those are the experience. Everything you guys are talking about comes from time in the courthouse and learning how to prepare to be in the courthouse. We got a couple of questions here because I don't want to be mindful of everyone's time, but we'll start with Beth this time. What do you believe are challenges that face the justice system? And we'll go right to the round robin here.
Sure. So, of course, because I do sort of manage a state agency whose job is to be part of the justice system, funding is a thing. That's a real thing. We have to do the best we can with the money we're given. We do appreciate that this is taxpayer money. This is your money that's funding in. But of course, the cases are ever more and the need to get through them is ever more. So that is part of it, really one part of it. One of the things that I've learned, because we're neutral, and that is really a unique position to be neutral, the adversarial nature of the judicial system is important. It's one of the best systems that we have. But one of the things that I have really learned at the commission kind of piggybacks on what Mr. Hale was just saying. You cannot lose in being adversarial, in the win, the goal of finding the truth. That as an attorney, you want to win for your client. That's what they've hired you to do. And what people do when they come to attorneys, I'm gonna tell you right now, I have never met somebody that has come to me as a litigator and said, I'm having my best day. Help me out with that. They always bring you their problems. That's what we do. And they ask you to go to court and win for them, to get that problem resolved and win for them. And that's important. And especially in criminal defense, there's a reason it's adversarial. But we cannot lose in the criminal justice system. The goal is that we should really be finding out the truth of what happened. And you can't get so lost in the win as an attorney, and even in advising your clients, you have to say that, you can't get so lost in that we forget about this other bigger piece. We've got to come up with the correct truth solution. One of the other things is, as I say, and this is also kind of piggybacks on what Mr. Hale said, we always need to be inquisitive. We're working within the legal system and we're trying to figure out facts. One of the things that I've learned at the commission is if you think to yourself, should I turn over the rock? The answer to that is yes, you should. Yes, you should. We always are kind of really inquisitive in what we do. And I think there are opportunities to increase that, to increase the questions we ask. Particularly in criminal cases, we have cases after cases where, and there are reasons, but the evidence, forensic evidence, rape kits, they're just not tested. And some of that is getting lost because you're like, well, we maybe have all the answers, but go figure out, what is that test going to tell us? What is that next thing going to show us? We do that at the commission all the time because, again, we're neutral. So we're not outcome dependent, right? We're just trying to figure out what the answer is. So I do think that we could benefit as a system from just remembering that. The goal is to figure out the truth wherever that truth may lead. The best example I have of that is we have a case. It's the Williams case. It's public record, so you can read about it. But you can hear our investigators. There's a man in prison for a crime. Somebody else comes up and is arrested and says, well, I did the crime, but I didn't do it with that guy. And then it just stops. So we pick up the case 20 years later. We start testing some things like the DNA under the victim's fingernails, and it's somebody else. And two of my, investigators go out, they interview the guy, this third person, never been arrested for it. And he just confesses to them. And I think part of that is just our inquisitive nature. They just asking questions to lead to the truth. So I think that is a challenge that the judicial system faces because of its adversarial nature. It's necessary, but it's important that we balance that, I think.
Dan, would you like to take a stab at that?
Was that for me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, what do you believe challenges to face the current justice system?
Before I actually answer that question, I wanted to pick up on what Beth was talking about our adversarial system. There's a reason why the adversarial system is so important to our criminal justice system, and it is a search for truth. Now, the adversarial system puts parties on either end, and in order for this adversarial system, in order for us to get to the truth, we have to have good representation on both sides, both district prosecutors and defense attorneys. Because if you're in Wilmington and I'm in Asheville and we both get on I-40, we're on the same road and we're coming at each other from different places, but we're on the same road and we're going to meet somewhere on that road. And it may not be exactly in Raleigh. It may be in Clayton. It may be in Durham, but we're going to meet somewhere pretty close to Raleigh. And so in a criminal case, it takes good, scrappy representation on both sides, either through a trial or through the at least a plea negotiation case, because that's what gets you maybe not right at justice, but somewhere pretty close to justice. And if you don't have that strong representation on both sides, then you're going to be too far away from justice. And that's why that adversarial system is, in my mind, the best in the world. The resources, I've got a number of them that I could talk about, but I'm going to mention one that I know will kick off some discussion with Steve, and that is mental health. We have homeless people. We have veterans. We have a number of people who are out there on the streets, and the underlying cause for a lot of what is going on is that those folks are not getting the mental health treatment that they need. And we we have just failed in that regard, and the resources are just so poor and so thin that we have got to make some improvements in that. Resources and also alternatives to jail. It's easy to, okay, you're guilty and maximum possible punishment is this, so I'm going to sentence you to this much time in jail. But I want resources. I want other things to do other than put somebody in jail. And sometimes jail is just, appropriate, but a lot of times other community-based resources would be a better answer in this situation. But, we are just so thin on those kind of resources that it's a struggle to figure out what to do. But mental health is our biggest issue, I would say, right now.
Okay. Steve, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, it certainly is. Mental health is critical. Wake County Jail is our largest mental health facility. I say that often. Police officers don't have the resources. They get a disturbance call, and you get there, and it's someone in a mental health crisis. We've lost Dorothea Dix. We've lost Wake County Mental Health. We've lost Wake County Alcoholic Treatment Center, ATC. The federal government in the 60s, and the ACLU decided that, or said that it was inappropriate to warehouse mental health patients, and so their idea was to release them from the mental health facilities and push them down into the communities. The money was supposed to follow it. Federal money was supposed to follow that, but it did not. And that's been 40 years ago, and it's not getting better. And the officers I talk to tell me it's getting worse. And with the Wake County Sheriff's Department just lost a contract with or did not renew a contract with a mental health transport service that was providing transport service for people that had been ruled committable. And so now deputies are having to commit these people or transport these people. That's 5 or 6 a day. So that's taking officers off the street. So no, there's no question. Judge Nagle and I have had this experience throughout our law enforcement careers, dealing with people. We were talking about someone we knew that was incarcerated when we were young officers, who was always in the jail. He was on disability. He was receiving Social Security. He would go to the federal courthouse right beside the old courthouse, the federal post office, looking for a Social Security check. And he would get frustrated and couldn't deal with the anxiety of not having any money. And he would act out and or hit somebody. And then the marshals would have to take him into custody for a federal crime, a trespassing at a post office. And he ends up in the Wake County Jail without his medication, untreated. And he would get out, and then he would walk down the street and ask somebody for something, and that person would get upset, and he'd get another altercation. It was on and on and on. The other issue that we are facing in the justice system is the size of the discovery files, and Beth can talk about this as well. It's just mind-boggling how much information we have to go through, both sides, both the defense and the prosecution. Because of digital media, cell phones, cameras, I've got a file where they've taken a cell phone tower dump. The police, and it's a very good investigative technique, they captured every cell phone number that hit a cell phone tower and tried to look for a pattern, and found 4 suspects that didn't live in the area, whose cell phones all hit the tower at the same time, near a robbery, a convenience store robbery. Well, as a defense expert, I've got to go through all that information and corroborate what the police say. And the state is going to bring experts in to tell the jury what these records mean. Well, I've got to give the defendant an opportunity through my investigation to determine if they are correct and who had those phones. I mean, it's just a device that's hitting the cell phone tower. They can't necessarily prove that it's an individual. So I've got to go out and figure out some way to corroborate what the police said before it goes to trial. And then you have the cell phone device itself. They'll extract every bit of information that's on that device, hundreds of thousands of texts, hundreds and thousands of emails, photographs, videos, and then you get Facebook, you get social media. The state will send a subpoena to these social media, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, and they just give you the raw data because they're not an investigator. They just send you a big dump of information, and that's all got to be processed by both sides. I mean, the state may not need it, but to be thorough, they collected it. And because of Brady, the U.S. Supreme Court requires the state to turn over everything. I get that information and I'm expected to make some sense of it. Is it helpful or is it not? So it's a tremendous hurdle to prepare a defendant for trial with the size of the discovery files in this modern digital age. Isn't that right, Beth?
Yeah, so I do have, so one thing about the mental health is when I worked at DPS and my job there was an assistant general counsel, I advised them, and I learned some really excellent lessons, and I'm kind of going to give a shout out. I worked under David Geis, and one of his big pushes was understanding how we could treat people who had been sentenced when they had mental health issues so that when they were released, they were prepared. It is a bad day to release an inmate with significant mental health issues who has had no treatment because it's a revolving door. That's exactly right. So that really is a challenge. As to discovery, I'm going to have a quick little dork moment. I know we're getting to 7 o'clock, but I'm actually getting my LLM, which is like your master's in law. And one of the things that I'm really looking at for this is the difference in civil discovery versus criminal discovery. And Mr. Hale's exactly right. What happens in criminal discovery is you get a ton of documents and no real method by which you're going to make sense of that. When I represented doctors and businesses, when somebody sued a doctor, before that case went to trial, I knew everything about what was going to happen at that trial. Truly, I had deposed every expert. I had deposed the plaintiff. And a deposition is like a special type of under oath interview. And they had explained the documents they gave us. That's what's important about it. So an expert would give you a report, or they'd give you 50 pages of what they pulled off a phone, and you got to talk to them before trial about what that meant. So everybody goes down there to trial and it just kind of flows a little easier. Criminal court's not like that. It's just not like that. You get a lot of documentation, but what I see a lot is a lot of times defense attorneys are left for various reasons, really asking discovery questions at trial. And that's not really what that's meant to do. So I agree. I think the Brady system is right. It's open file. There's a reason for that, but there are some examples from civil discovery, and the commission gets to use both. We get to use civil discovery and criminal discovery to do our investigations. So basically what they said to me is every legal tool ever you get to use. That was the most exciting part of my job when I got it. I was like, I can use them all. This is great. But it does provide some comparisons and some lessons. So I do agree that the way discovery is done has improved in criminal discovery for sure. But I think there are some things we could do to help just that volume to kind of organize it in a way that would be helpful to getting through the cases.
I've been remiss and I let us go over 7, but I want to give you all a chance to close for 30 seconds. And we're going to go in this order. We're going to go with Judge Nagle, Beth, and then Steve. And then I'll do a quick close. But Judge Nagle, you get a minute, because in addition to your 30 seconds, I want you to tell us about the backlog and what COVID's impact has been to us in the district courts, and how long is it going to take to try and clean up the backlog? So the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, well, very quickly, I attempted to get some data, some numbers on where were we before this COVID virus shutdown hit us, and where are we now, and at what rate are we closing out the cases that we have and the new cases that are coming in. How many new cases are we picking up on top of that? I was not able to get those numbers. They're not available to me yet, but just from personal experience in being in the courtroom and seeing the numbers, we've had snow days where we've had to shut the court down for a day or two during the snow, and it takes months to get through that bulge that creates. Now, we've got 3 months or two or 3 months where we shut the courts down except for absolutely essential cases, and it's going to take us at least 3 years to get back to comfortable levels to where we can continue, where we can be in a position where we were before, and that is we're disposing of more cases than come in. But that's going to take several years. But there are a lot of improvements. We're doing some hearings by remote testimony. We started that during the COVID shutdown, and just like any other business, you have to learn to reinvent yourself. And eCourts project is coming up, and that will provide some additional resources. But I think at least a couple of years before we're even somewhere back to normal. Oh, and thank you for your vote in November. www.dannagleforjudge.com. That is either Dan Nagle FOR or Dan Nagle 4. But again, I appreciate everybody's time and interest, and please do research judicial candidates, because we just don't get the votes that the top part of the ballot gets, because people are tired and they just stop voting and they stop researching. And it's important to know that person that you're going to appear in front of is the one that you would choose.
I agree. Beth?
Yes, I'll just remind everybody, it is Beth Tanner. BethTannerForJudge.com is where you can go. This is an important race. I think I've heard a rumor that the ballots might be 3 pages. Y'all, we're right before the bonds, okay? We're like way down at the bottom, and ballot drop-off is real, but local candidates matter. So we've got, Mr. Hale here. These local candidates matter, and they're at the bottom, but they're also the people who are closest to you. So I encourage people to go vote. I appreciate your vote. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can reach out to me through my website. And you can also see what I do at the commission by searching North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission. So I have a record I'm proud of. There's some public stuff up there that you can see what we've been doing.
Thank you. Steve?
I just want to thank everyone for attending. Really excited about Beth's candidacy and her potential as a district court judge. We've gotten to know each other a little bit these last few months of campaigning. I want to thank Judge Nagle for appearing. He did a great job. I've been a fan for a long time. We've been close friends for a long time. So thank you, everyone. And as Beth said, turn the ballot over. We're on the back. We're in the middle somewhere on the back. And so, as Beth said, there's a big drop off between the front and the national candidates and your local candidates on the back, who make the biggest difference in how your community functions, how your life is, or your local candidates. We are encouraged by Colonel Swain's campaign for Congress, and we know he's going to take care of things there, but it has little effect on how people live in our community. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on November 3rd.
Thank you, guys. I guess the first thing I would tell you is thanks to the 3 candidates here. Wish you all luck. Judge Nagle, I think you're a winner.
Thank you.
It's prediction. The other 2, along with me, we've got to work between now and November. If you haven't paid attention to what's going on in our country lately, all politics is local. Concerns over what's going on down at the state capitol with a lot of the social unrest, peaceful protests turning into more than peaceful protests. Politics are local. These two, Beth, we need to elect her. Judge Nagle will be in there come January of next year. It is critical that you take a look, get to know those candidates, because they're the people you're going to be seeing in any of those, the first judge you're going to see. Steve, working at the Wake County Commission level, we got 7 candidates, or 7 commissioners, of which 4 are Republicans. And if you want your voice heard, you need to learn more about Steve Hale for Wake Commissioner. Same thing with the school board. If you're upset with what's going on with the education within the state, within Wake County, we have 9 districts, of which only 4, 5, and 6 are not going to have Republicans running. So we're very fortunate. We have a chance to turn the tide with regard to conservatives having a voice, a big voice at the school board for Wake. So it's really important that you get to know them. All politics is local. My job is to take care of this district in this county at the federal level. We need to take a look at our new governor. We need to be looking at the lieutenant governor. The General Assembly is critical. But again, the school board, the district judges, the conservative justices are for victory, judicial victory group is critical. And also the Wake County commissioners. But if you look at there's a 25% drop off in some cases on the ballot because they're so big on a presidential election year. If you don't take the time to get to know people and look at their backgrounds, it's critical. We don't want that 25% drop off. We want everyone to be held accountable and a chance to speak their voice. That's why we did this town hall tonight. We'll do more if people ask us to do it, but giving all of us exposure to the people of this county and this district are critical, because a lot of it's name recognition and getting involved. And that's what we need to do. We need every person that's watching to go out and find 5 more people to get involved so they get to know about Beth Tanner and they get to know about Steve Hale and the other 3 county commissioners and Alan Swain, along with our General Assembly. Got a bunch of great group of candidates, and it's critical that you get to know them all. I want to thank you 3 again for this. I'm sorry I went a little over, but the conversation was interesting enough that we warranted going over. So have a nice evening, and thank you all for attending. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Alan, if I could say thank you, Colonel, for your service.
Thank you very much for your service, sir, and you, Steve, and Beth. Thank you. Bye-bye.